If I believe there's a reason for this pain I'm going through, if I believe that leaving me was all that you could do, if I believe that I can feel you by my side, I'll make it through the night. If I believe that time will teach me how to find my way, if I believe that broken hearts grow stronger every day, if I believe that now you're dancing across the sky, I just might get by. If I believe that memories won't always hurt this much, if I believe that I will see your face again, I can wait till then. If I believe I'll hold you in my arms again, I can wait. I know that I can wait. I can wait till then. I can wait till then.
I met some really, really amazing people on this journey of mine who, despite the pain of losing their beautiful children, are still here and still willing to help others.
I don't want my brother to ever feel like that, and even though I struggle with being mad at him, I will always tell him I'm proud of him, and I always tell him I love him, because I don't ever want him to feel worthless.
So this is where the journey starts.
This is where it started. This is where it ended. Makes no sense.
So we all came down here. Nicholas walked out in his boots in the freezing cold water and put the ashes in the river. I want them to really know this is no joke. You know what I mean? Like, one time.
During the 2 hours that we gathered here tonight, 3 people will lose their lives to the deadly but treatable disease of addiction. And that is why we need to unite together to stop the stigma and help those suffering find treatment and show support to their families. because they are our neighbors, they are our friends, and they are our loved ones.
That was really nice. It really was. Hi, my name's Joanne, and you're on the Somerville Overcoming Addiction show. We have Michele Goodwin, which I haven't seen in a while, and it's really nice to see you. You've been traveling all over the place.
The gypsy that I am.
That's wonderful, though. It really is.
It was hard to watch that, even though, you know, maybe not hearing all of the sound, to not cry when I see that, because families that were in that, and it was just a couple that I had picked out. My friend Colleen lost her son Michael, who the last time I was on, that's who we were talking about with Mia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Michael Galanos, and his mom had taken me to, he was a river guide, a raft guide, and she showed me where he worked, and that's where he loved being on the river, and he loved being a guide. And so when he passed away, they took some of his ashes on his birthday, and they spread his ashes in the river, and so that's what part of that clip was her showing me that that's what they did. And then there was another piece in there, which I think, why I think it's so important to talk about the family, is it's my friend's daughter who was talking about the impact that her brother's addiction had on her. He's alive, and he is in recovery today. But, you know, I think sometimes the sibling piece gets lost in the mix because they are impacted. You know, we know this is a family disease. So
Absolutely.
it's every time I watch it, I get that lump.
Because you're a caring, compassionate, and loving woman, and you care about the people that you work with. And that's one of the things that we don't always see. You know, there's the person that is actually working in the recovery field to help people, and then there are others because it's a paycheck.
Right.
And unfortunately, you never do know what you're going to get
Right.
when you first start out. But I know when I saw you and spoke to you how caring you are about everyone you discuss.
And there's a lot of us. I mean, look what you're doing here for your community and the people, the mutual friends that we know. And since I last saw you, you know, a lot transpired in my life. And I was on here with Mia, who was a client, and she's doing well. And I was working for a treatment center. And a little background, I've been a therapist for 20 years. And
You don't even look that old.
Oh, thank you. I'll give you that $20 later. I got into it not for the money. I mean, I got into it because I wanted to help people and because of the people that I knew in my life that had struggled, and also my own, you know, life. I definitely was no angel, and if you talk to my mother and father, they would say, she put us through the ringer. And by the grace of God, I'm here.
That's a good thing.
And I say that because I really believe it is because of that. With some of the things that I did, I was real wild and crazy back in the day. But when I got into the industry, it was very different. It was very different. And I plugged away and got my degrees and worked in the field and went from Pennsylvania, Northeast treatment, to Florida. And when I got to Florida, I was working on my PhD. So I wasn't planning on working. I had sold my house, and it was, I thought, I'm going to finish school, get my PhD, but you know, I needed to go back to work. So I said, well, I'll do what I know, which is working in treatment. I taught at a college too, so I did that part-time in Florida as well. But things that I saw working in the industry in Florida, you know, I can't, you know, you tell people about it and they go, what? I couldn't wrap my head around some of the things that I was seeing, and I didn't understand what marketing was. Or these people would come in and they'd say, you know, my marketer's coming. What is that? You know, we market things, not human beings. And you know, so a lot transpired while I was there. And fast forward to, I left working as a therapist. I started working for a guy who had you know, he referred people to treatment, and I thought, this is good, this is what I want to do. I love working with the families, and I love connecting with the families. That's always been my passion. And I always said, Joanne, when a client would come in, who are we calling? And if they said, no, I don't want you to call my mother, I don't want you to call anybody, and I would say, get out. And I would say it like that. And they would look at me like I had 6 heads, and I would say, who's buying your cigarettes? Whose insurance are you under? And wait a minute, your family's been through hell with you. Why not let them be part of something good and positive, you know? And I would flip it like that. But I loved being on the road, and I loved meeting with families, and I loved going to events. And I eventually worked for a treatment center, and after 2 months, fired. And I think that's when I was here the last time.
Yeah.
And so then I got a job with another treatment center saying, no, you know, because I didn't make a quota, and I didn't produce, and I still can't wrap my head around having to have a number. You know, I want to help somebody, whether they have insurance or not. Fortunately, I know a lot of people, as you do too, that we can make a phone call and probably find a bed for somebody, a scholarship bed.
Right.
And I'm blessed to have those connections. But I took a job with another facility, and thinking that it was going to be different, and it wasn't. And I think I lasted there 4.5, maybe 5 months, and you get that call. You know, this isn't working out. And I was devastated, Joanne. I felt so defeated because I felt like I put my heart and soul into this. I love what I do. I really do. It wasn't work for me.
Right. But they're people, they're not numbers to you.
Absolutely.
So that's what the problem was, is that you shouldn't be devastated. Well, you should be devastated that you lost your job, because I'm sure that you've always been out there plugging and doing the best that you can everywhere that you went to. And then now all of a sudden, you know, it's like, wow, why? Right. And now you know, because they want the money.
Right. It is a blessing. It was a blessing in disguise. But, you know, when you, that first initial, I got scared. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I need an income. You know, I have a place. I have, you know, all these things that we have, real life, real adult stuff. And it was, in that moment, I remember exactly where I was. I was at my friend's in Pennsylvania. As a matter of fact, in the video, the young lady that's talking, that's where I was, at her house. I'm friends with her mom. And I just started crying. And then I called my son, who's in Florida, and I told him what happened. And he's the one who said to me, Mom, I'm not going to repeat what he said because of the language, but he basically said, you don't need it. You don't need that. Get out of that business. It's not worth the stress. It's not worth, you're worth more. You know, and that even makes me a little emotional thinking about it, because he knew. My son grew up with me being a therapist, being on the phone, working on the weekends, doing family programs, you know, and he said, finish the book, because I started writing a book 2 years ago. And life, you know, working and traveling for work, I wasn't giving the book the time that it needed.
Put it on the back burner for a while here.
And I would do a little bit at a time, or then I'd meet somebody. I just couldn't. And so I made the decision to, you know, and I had to kind of get grounded for a minute and feel like, whatever happens, I'm going to be okay. I always land on my feet, no matter what. You can kick me down, but I always land on my feet.
They're not going to keep you down for long.
Right, right. And so I had to trust that this is also part of my journey. And at almost 50 years old, again, unemployed, and thinking, what am I going to do? So I went back to Florida, told my landlord, you know, here's my 30-day notice. Sold literally every item, material possession that I own. Spatulas, I mean, all my kitchen stuff, my furniture, everything, except for what would fit in my Jeep, a couple suitcases of clothes, you know, and my important papers, even my books I gave away. And it was very liberating, that feeling too. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I had a lot of friends all over saying, you know, we know this place, this treatment center. And I said, I'm done. I'm done working in that business. There's a lot of great clinicians. There's a lot of great staff, support staff. There's a lot of great people and great treatment centers out there. I just didn't feel like I landed more recently in any of those. So I was done, and I just thought, I'm going to finish the book. And so I had a little bit of money. I went to visit my family in Arizona. I thought, what a great place to write. And then I had an opportunity. Again, I'm blessed because I have some friends of somebody who needed a nanny in California, and I wouldn't be working full time. And he knew that my priority was
To write the book.
to write the book. And he said, you'll have a beautiful place. You don't have to worry about anything. You're helping me, and you can write the book. So I'm a West Coast girl now.
A little while, but are you going to get
Temporarily.
used to that? No.
I don't know. You know, I love the Northeast. So I came back recently because there were people I needed to see, because there's such an amazing group of people here that have lost their children, including yourself, and that are part of the book. And initially, the book started off. It's called Never in a Million Years, and I titled it that because I used to say to families, just if I would have said when your son was alive, never in a million years did you think that this would be your life. It's a living nightmare.
It is.
You know, to watch your loved one get sucked in and like hijacking of the soul, body, and brain. And
The worst thing is not feeling helpless, not able to help them.
right,
They have to go through it themselves. You can't do it for them.
right,
And every day it was always a struggle, but I knew I was going to be burying my oldest son. I just knew it.
right.
You know, when is it going to be? Is this going to be the phone call that I'm going to get? You know, every mother that I've ever spoken to, and I'm sure every mother that you've spoken to, or even father, always thought, I'm going to get a phone call someday. And I would have my phone on 24 hours a day. I'd be right there. And I'm intuitive too. So a lot of times I'd say, I have to have that phone on tonight. And one time there was a car accident and my youngest got hurt. But it's like you knew something was going to happen, but you didn't know exactly what.
Mother's intuition or parent intuition.
Yes, that's true. So that's what happened with me. But for some reason, I always felt that Frankie was not going to be here long. You know, he suffered. He was a 7-week early baby boy. He was 4 pounds 9 ounces.
Wow.
He was due on Labor Day, and I had him in July.
Wow.
July 16th. So he struggled. I say he struggled on the way in, and he struggled on the way out. And
How old was he when he passed?
it was 32. Wonderful, wonderful young man that, you know, he used to like design things, and he was a good comedian. He always tried to make people happy, cared about people. When he was like 17 or 18 years old, one of his close friends were murdered in Somerville.
Ugh.
Her name was Deanna Crimmins. And he used to go and walk all the girls home, you know, after work, because he worked at the time, Boston Market, and say, why are you coming home so late? Well, you know, Mom, I couldn't let her walk home by herself. I said, but
Wow,
nobody
he's a
walks
good
you
guy.
home.
He was a good guy.
No, he was. He was phenomenal. And that's what people have, is misconception of what a person that uses is. You know, so we talk about stigma, you know, and I've heard or I've seen it in writing and being on Facebook, and people say, well, he was just nothing but a junkie. Not me and my son, but anybody in general.
Right.
And that really kills me, and I really hate when people talk like that, because you know what? There's someone's son, brother, uncle, father, and it's just not right. And they didn't choose it. You know, and like Frankie's case was he had a motorcycle accident, and at the time the doctors prescribed the medication for him. And he fought a 10-year battle. And you know, this kid worked for the post office making $52,000 a year.
Wow.
And all that money went to drugs. You know, he even would go and get a loan if he could get a loan
Payday loans and
to take care of his habit
right.
that he never ever thought he would have. I mean, the kid liked to drink a few drinks here and there. He never liked any kind of drug that he actually, you know, a lot of kids have experiments, and so have we when we were younger.
Right.
I have to admit I did. I experimented with marijuana. But, you know, Frankie was level-headed, and it was just, it's amazing. I don't know if you know Michael DeLeon. Did you ever hear of him? Okay, so he actually did one called the American Epidemic, and I actually am in that documentary. But there's only one spot, and the one spot I talk about is Frankie didn't like a needle, but yet he put a needle to his arm.
Right.
You know, and
how many times have you heard parents say that, especially now with what you do? Parents have said that about their kids.
Right. They would never, when he went to the doctor's office, he used to shy away. Or I remember this funny thing is that he was 8 years old, and he was playing with the BB, like a little BB,
Right.
and it went in his ear. I don't know if he was 8 or younger. No, he might have been a lot, no, I'm sorry, he must have been a lot younger, maybe 5 or 6. And I tried to bring him to the doctors, and they wouldn't let him go near his ear. All they needed to do is, you know how they have that little hook?
Right.
With a little loop on it, and they pull it out. He wouldn't let them do it. The next day we had to go to Mass General Hospital and put him in anesthesia in order to get it out.
Wow.
He really, no one could go near him.
Right.
No needles, nothing, and yet, like I said, he took a needle to his arm.
Right.
So there became his own stigma. So when we talk about stigma and how a lot of people are ashamed of the addiction part of it, or they feel that people don't know, but mostly everybody does. You're kidding yourself when you don't think that people know that there's addiction in your family. You're better off to be open and discuss it.
Right.
So I do that. I talk about Frankie, and it's like I asked my youngest son, I said, do you mind? If you want me, I never talk about you because I didn't want to mention the fact that, that you had addiction as well. And he says, no, I have no problem with that, Mom.
He's not ashamed of it.
Yeah, because now he's 6 years in recovery.
Beautiful.
So, I always say I have a sad story and I have a happy story.
Today.
Today. And although, I still have this void, and I'll never, ever get rid of the void because one of my children is gone. So, but I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad we're talking about what you're going to be doing, and you're going to finish this book real soon, right?
I'm going to finish this book. You sang something, Joanne, I'd love to read something.
Okay, that'd be great.
That today, one of my dear friends posted something, and it was actually last night, and it was a picture of the urn that her son's ashes are placed in their home, and they have these glass pieces, and her and his dad will put fresh flowers in. And she took a picture of it. And she just wrote underneath the caption, I miss my son. Blaine grew up with my son. We all hung out. Kids always got together and would play. I moved to Florida, and Blaine's a year older than my son. I didn't realize that Blaine was struggling with addiction. It wasn't until the past couple years I saw some things on Facebook, and he was talking about going to meetings, and I was like, wow, he's in recovery. I didn't even know he had a problem. So I would reach out to him, and then I saw the struggles. And he was kind of putting things on Facebook, and so I messaged him, and I was like, dude, this is what I do for a living, I can help you. And so I was fortunate to get someone to give him a scholarship in Florida because he didn't have insurance. And I said, but you have to stay here. You're going to do this. I'll get you down here. And he detoxed on my couch. I couldn't find him a detox scholarship. He detoxed on my couch. And the man that showed up at the airport that I picked up was not the young man that I remembered. And you know what addiction does to our beautiful children. And so he did treatment, and he was the model client. I mean, he was amazing, as he was, even when he was using. And but he went back home, and I remember I just happened to be at my friend's house in Pennsylvania. Something about being at her house, I get all this bad news. I was at her house. We were going to a police station to talk to them about something, and I got a call and said, you don't know yet. And I said, I don't know what. And it was my old roommate, and he said, Blaine died. And I just, those phone calls, those moments, and I just threw my hands on the dashboard, and I just needed to get out of the car. And then I called his mom, and the sound in her voice that I will never get out of my head. that happened in the middle of writing this book. And anyway, she posted this picture and said, I miss my son. And I posted something that I had seen a lot of the moms and dads and people that I know, put a lot of inspirational quotes and things that try to describe what they're feeling. You can't always put it in words. There are no words sometimes. When somebody passes, I just say there are no words. Because saying sorry and it'll get better, and I don't believe time heals all wounds. You have a void. I lost a child. You're never going to be the same. So I found this, and it's written by somebody named Gwen Flowers. I want to make sure I give credit for that. It says, I had my own notion of grief. I thought it was the sad time that followed the death of someone you love. And you had to push through it to get to the other side. But I'm learning there is no other side. There is no pushing through, but rather there is absorption, adjustment, acceptance. And grief is not something you complete, but rather you endure. Grief is not a task to finish and move on, but an element of yourself, an alteration of your being, a new way of seeing, and a new definition of self. And for me, that was just so powerful, and I put that on her page because you're adjusting to what your life is going to be like. And that last night I had the opportunity to again revisit some stories with some of the people that are in the book from Massachusetts that have lost their children, and everybody's in a different place. Some people are 3 years out from their anniversary, and some people it's 2 years, and it's so interesting as a clinician to see how people are coping. Mm-hmm. And I always say we get through things not so gracefully at times, but and what is it that they get up every day, and listening to the stories, which is why I'm writing the book, because I feel like these stories need to be told. Mary DeMarco, one of the moms, gave me.
Mary's been on here 5 times.
Yes, I love Mary. I worked with her son, and that's how we met. But she gave me the bracelet from her nonprofit, and it says "Every life matters," and all of these people matter, and their stories, their parents' stories, are important. And I hope that it helps, because I think even giving a perspective, the families that didn't talk about the addiction and the regret for not letting family members know, and what is that about? It's that fear, it's that stigma. The families that regret the last conversation that they had with their child, and it's like you live with that guilt, which is horrible, and you just figure out a way to maneuver. My one friend who lost her only child said, Michelle, I'm just figuring out how to maneuver through the rest of my miserable existence. And this is a woman who loved life, and
it's hard to even. You can't even put it into words. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted children, so when I was able to conceive and have Frankie, and then after that Patrick, it was such a great feeling because I always wanted children. Mm-hmm. And to bury one of your own, it's like, he had a bad day the day before, so I went and he said, Mama, I don't want you checking up on me, so I didn't check up on him this night. And the next morning, I made bacon and eggs, and I went to wake him, and I found my son had passed on. And the thing is that I was always there for Frankie. I would do anything for him. Mm-hmm. It was my love, my greatest gift.
Mm-hmm. Your heart.
Both of them are my prized possessions. And it's like, he was a baby, and I went and learned CPR.
Wow.
And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I can to save my child, and I wasn't even able to save him. How did I even know that I was ever going to be like that at 32, never mind when he was 8 months?
Right.
Right. And here I am learning CPR, but yet I couldn't save my son. I didn't even know what Narcan was.
Wow.
My son's anniversary is in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Frankie died November 15th of 2009. So mine is coming up shortly. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that I think that what I try to do, and I try to work with people, and I do the show, and I go to all those marches, go to Washington, and whatever I can to. We need to have a voice, and they need to hear us. And I always think that in huge numbers, not separated. You can't have. So we did our first vigil in Boston Common on August 31st. I was hoping that it would be a little bit bigger than it was. But when 2015, we went down to Washington, we had this big, big group of people from all over the country, and then nobody even knew we were there. There was no TV coverage, there was no news coverage. We went up to, walked up to the White House, did our thing there, and no one even knew we were there. And to me, that was just amazing. We, all these people travel from so many distances. Why? This is an epidemic, and it's a pandemic now. There's so many people that are dying, and it's like, they see it on TV almost every day. There's something about opioid. Or how many treatment centers are advertising that they have a treatment center.
Watch commercials late at night, wherever you are. There's a woman from up here that I'm friends with her on Facebook, Mary, with the Hope Bears.
Oh yeah, Mary Peckman.
She puts on every day, which I see, the number. The
How
number
many
of
people?
and I think it's over 60,000. I think when I looked at it the other, 60,000 people this year.
It was 72,000 last year.
When we're in November, we still have a month and a half or a month, 3/4 of a month to go. It's just so disturbing, and I don't know what the answers are. I feel like educating our kids at a younger age about making good choices and teaching them, hopefully, the medical field and doctors are going to, hopefully now the doctors that are coming out and graduating have, more education on pharmaceuticals and addiction, specifically because, my son, and I thank God every day, is not an addict because I worked and I knew the nightmare that it was for families. It's just, you're consumed. You know this. You're absolutely consumed, every ounce of your being. And sometimes there's no handbook. Now we have a lot more resources, but a lot of people are still suffering in silence. But my son had a collarbone injury, snapped his collarbone. Orthopedic surgeon, who we'd been to a couple times because he was a fearless boy, had said, we're going to do a surgery. We're going to put this bar in, and we're going to have the surgery, and his collarbone's going to be perfect. So we did it. I knew, and I was a clinician then, those pain pills, I'm going to be in control of. I don't even want him to take them, but this was serious surgery. When we were at the surgical center before, when he came out, the doctor said, you need to give him a pain pill now by the time you get home. He was still coming off the anesthesia. I gave him the pain pill, but because of the anesthesia, he was nauseous. So by the time we got home, my kid's puking all over. And now that rod that they put in is pushing out the thing that they just stitched up. He was in so much pain. He associated what I gave him with what made him sick. And I thank God for that every day because
He didn't want it anymore.
he didn't want it. He didn't want anything to do with it. He doesn't like to take any kind of pills or anything like that. I'm blessed. So the only difference between my son, Dylan, and your son, Frankie, is I really believe that moment. Because if he would have taken those, he would have liked it. And I want to share something, too, that happened recently with me. I ended up with like a kidney infection. I was in the hospital when I was out in Arizona, not too long ago. Thank God my sister-in-law handled that for me and took me. But they wanted to give me pain meds, and I said, I really don't need it. I was nauseous. Make me feel better. My back was killing me. But they gave me something in my IV, and they said, we're just going to give you a little something. It'll help you sleep.
Sedative.
And no, it was morphine. My face got hot. I never felt this before in my life. My face got hot. I thought I was having an allergic reaction, and I got scared and panicked, and I said, there's something wrong. And the nurse said, no, this is okay. And then it was like this feeling in my body, and I looked at my sister-in-law, who knows what I do, and I said, this is it. This is why. And she goes, what are you talking about? Because I had a fever of 105. I was hallucinating anyways. She goes, what are you talking about? This is why all these kids do that. I get it now. Like, I get that they always tried to describe what that feeling was. They'd say, Michelle, you have no idea. Because I would say,
Purple
why?
haze.
Why? Yeah, why do you keep going back to it? Especially when all your friends are dying.
That's what Jimi Hendrix sang about.
Purple haze.
That's right. And that's what my son mentioned.
Really?
But I've been on morphine. As a matter of fact, I was pregnant with Frankie, and they gave me morphine in the hospital.
Wow.
Because, like I told you, he was 7 weeks early.
Right.
And he was 4 pounds 9 ounces. I went in there because, and I was in the labor room a week.
Wow.
And they didn't want to take him until after but eventually my water broke and they had no choice but to take him. But, they said, oh, he's not going to be able to breathe on his own because, being 7 weeks early, his lungs weren't developed enough.
Right,
That's how they came back. Because they do they did 3 tests and they look at all the hospitals and they said, well, 2 of the hospitals says that his lungs aren't developed enough, so we're going to go with that and not this hospital said he's fine. It turns out the one that they didn't agree with was the one that was right, and his lungs were fine.
Wow. Well, thank God.
Yeah, thank God that he was, that he did pretty well. But the poor kid suffered, like I said, 4 pounds 9 ounces, 7 weeks early, didn't know how to suck. He was up every 2 hours to feed. He'd be tired after an hour. The poor kid struggled in the beginning of his life, and then the poor thing for 10 years.
Struggled.
He fought so hard with the addiction, and I don't know how many times I put him into. The last straw was he asked me to section him. So I went down to the courts, I made arrangements, talked to the people the clinician down there, and they agreed, and we brought him to the first. It was just a men's facility was just opening up in Brockton, and he went to that. But the thing is that I didn't like the way that they were being treated. All around, I said to them I went to a meeting one time with CHA, which is Cambridge Health Alliance, and they are Everett, Somerville, Cambridge, and I said, you know what? What I would like you to do is to have sensitivity classes. A lot of these people that are in the emergency room are not sensitive enough to what's going on with someone of addiction. And then secondly, you really should have recovery coaches here in the hospitals to be able to work with them. Where you're too busy taking on other patients. I think that would be a relief. And I told I said, they're not going to be going to. Anyone with addiction is going to end up in the emergency room, and they're not going. A lot of them are not going to go to their primary care physician and say, "I'm addicted."
Right. Or they may not even have a doctor.
Right.
I mean, that's the other thing too. They may not even be in that.
So I only hope that hospitals, and they did. They changed, not because of me, but they did change different things that they were doing.
Protocol.
The protocol for the hospital. So I'm thankful for that. And there are a lot of caring people that I was dealing with that really did care about them. So things are changing, but not as fast as I'd like to see it.
In listening to, there was a few women last night, Joanne, that I had never. They're my Facebook friends, and I know of them through all of the women up here. But I had a chance to finally face-to-face sit down and hear their stories. And, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on the addiction because we all know what that looks like.
Right.
The details are a little bit different, but it's all the same. And, what I got out of that, and it was so emotional. I'm crying, and I think that's the connection. It's crazy, and you're looking around the room and going, you guys never knew each other until your child died from an overdose or drugs and alcohol, whatever it is. And now the bonds that these people have.
They help each other.
Yeah, and I'm listening to these stories and I'm thinking what my other friend says all the time, you can do as a parent all the right things, all the right things, the things that we know work or that are strongly suggested. And the outcome could be the same. You could still bury your child. And I don't know, who am I to say that? it is what it is. Life, I always say life, and sometimes it can be full of so much joy and so much pain at the same time. But somehow we were talking about when I went to go see Dr. Pody, I think her name is, Dr. Ruth Pody,
Yes.
up here. And I heard her talk, and it was at a school, and I'm listening to this woman who's a physician. She has her hands full with all the things that she's doing, but the way she explained it was in layman's terms. Anybody could understand it, brain chemistry. But what I liked what she did is she did this comparison of what happens to a person if I'm having a heart attack and I'm going into the hospital in the emergency room, protocol. What's going to happen, what treatment's going to be, what the aftercare plan is going to be. When you come in with an overdose, like you said, it is getting better in some areas, but no, that's not happening. So we can do better as a community, as a society. We
I think they're
absolutely
starting
can.
to listen.
I hope so, because one child is too many, and it's been just over the course of my career, it's like you've seen this curve, this spike. 15 years ago, I didn't have a lot of opiate addicts. I could probably tell you on one hand, over the course of a couple of years, people that came in with an opiate or a heroin addiction. Now it's the other way around. Now it's like I can count on one hand someone who's an alcoholic that I treated, or cocaine. And now it's the opiates.
So it's a really, really hard profession, I'm sure, because you have a lot of dips and...
You have a lot of death.
Right. And the thing is that the pain and the suffering, and the thing is that you're that type of a person. I'm just sitting here with you, and you're crying for the people that you loved, that you worked with, that you didn't even know, but had a relationship with them.
And I'll tell you what, each one is hard, and you know this because you're with people who've also lost, and so you're getting those calls too, or someone saying this mother or this father just lost, and so you feel their pain. We're human. We can't not feel. And even when I was in group doing therapy, I'm sure some of my clients made fun of me because I was crying, but I'm human. And when I went through my life stuff this year, which I considered to be, that was big stuff, losing my job and making a decision to leave the industry that I've given half my life to, that I loved. When I got, and again, the irony of things, life, I got back to Florida, and I didn't tell people what I was going to do. I didn't even tell people that I'd been fired. I just my immediate group knew, my family and my friends, and that was it. I didn't put anything on Facebook. I was like, I needed to process it myself and figure out what the heck I was going to do. There was one young man in particular, though, who had been a client of mine and became more than that. After I'd left treatment, after I was not a therapist there anymore, I had Sunday dinners at my house. I would invite these kids over, and he had a Thanksgiving dinner at my house. We had a bunch of people there, and he came, and I have that video. And his family, I always did family sessions. We always stayed in touch, and when he was in trouble, they would call me, and I would try to help. We'd try to help him, and he relapsed this year in April, went to treatment, and said to me, Michelle, I'm going back to Florida, though. That's my group. He was gay. He had the Lambda group, which is a great support network down there. He said, these guys, I got clean and sober with them. They're going to help me. And so as long as he was doing the right thing, I said to the family, support him. He knows.
Absolutely.
And he's a grown man, so he went back. And anyways, this is May, June, and then July. I'm back in Florida. I'm packing up my house. And I said to my friend, there's one young man in particular I want to tell in person. So I texted him. If he was using, he would never answer. They don't stay away from Michelle, for sure.
Because first of all, they're embarrassed.
And they know that I would know. And I would always say, like you said earlier, we know. But I texted him and I said, listen, I just want to let you know I'm leaving Florida. And I want to say goodbye to you. And he called me. He texted me back and he called me. And I said, come over. I want to see you, And he never came over, and I was busy getting yard sale signs, and it just didn't click because I thought, he's okay, because he called me, and he never would do that. That was on a Thursday night. Tuesday, and it had to have been 4:30 in the morning. My dog was having surgery the next day, and I'd sold all my stuff, so I had a couch I was sleeping on, and I get a text from his father, And I'm looking at it, Joanne, and I'm going, you know, it's surreal. It's the only word I can explain it as. And I immediately called his father, and he said, Casey lost his battle. And I just couldn't believe it, and I think I screamed. You know, you just don't remember what happens in that moment. But, God, I mean, it was like being punched in the gut. Because it's like, one more. How many more do we have to lose? And, you know, just devastated. I mean, it's like, you know, I always would joke with my friends about Lifetime movies and how tragic they were. You know, they pick the most tragic subject matter to talk about, and it's like, this is the reality. This is not a movie. This is someone's reality. And his sister's pregnant, you know, and so he's not going to be there to be the uncle that he was excited to be. The family ended up flying down, and they had to get his car. And I said, just bring the car to my house. I have a carport we can park it under, and give them some privacy to go through his things, and I'll help you. And after, you know, we sat in my house and we cried and we talked, and then the family was finally ready to go out, and I'm out there with his mom and dad with garbage bags, and we opened the trunk of the car that was like a brand new car. But addiction, we know what that looks like. The car's all crashed, beat up, there's crud all on the inside, it's dirty. We open the trunk and there's all these clothes scattered to the back, and I'm like, this is it right here. This is addiction. There's one sock. Where's the other sock? Where's the other shoe? And it was like, this is what it's come to, is that, you know, we're cleaning out this young man's, this is what it is. In my driveway, we're cleaning out his trunk, and you know, my heart hurts for his family, and you know, they're still grieving. And, you know, it's like this, and everybody's in a different place. And, you know, again, the tragedy of it, his mom was retiring, and she was going to be coming down and spending time with him. September 8th was her retirement party. And the father had bought him a ticket, was going to surprise mom and fly him up. And so there's all these things. And I went to the service, and I spoke. And one of the things that I said was that God gave us him for 26 years, however many months, however many days, however many hours it was until he took his last breath. And I'm blessed to have known him, because he really, like everybody that has come into my life that we've lost, I'm blessed to know them. You know, and what an impact that they've had on my life, which is going back to why these stories need to be told, because these kids mattered. And
Certainly did.
why Casey, why Frankie, versus, you know, somebody who is, you know, one day at a time, your other son, you know, in recovery. So the book is about hope. The book is about perseverance. The book is about strength. And there are a lot of success stories. There are a lot of people that I wanted to share their story, their struggles, and that everybody's okay with their name being in the book. I mean, how awesome is that? You're going to say your name like, I'm Michele Goodwin, and I shot heroin, and I did this, and I'm honored. I'm humbled, and I'm honored to be able to share all these stories. You know, because I hope that if it helps one family, one person, know that there is hope. Even if you've lost a child, there is hope. You can come to Massachusetts and hang out with all the crazy broads up here, who I love. There was so much love in that room. In every event that I come to up here, I see it, and it's mind-blowing. And I wish that all communities could have. You guys have a good thing going on here.
We call ourselves warrior moms.
Yep.
And the thing is that, it's what I try to tell, like, there are some people that are on Facebook. I said, you know, Facebook in a way has been bad for a lot of reasons, but then it's been great for a lot.
Right.
Anytime that I've ever like shot out, I need a bed, or I need help, everybody comes out of the woodwork to get that ride for that person, or to get free treatment, or whatever. And it's like, it's a godsend in a way. and that at 11 or 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning when you're feeling so poorly, and you know, people forget you when you lose your child, because it's not because they don't love you, because a lot of times people they don't know how to approach you.
Right.
And they don't want to say the wrong things. And sometimes they do. It's like, oh, well, it'll get better. How do you know? Did you lose a child?
Right.
You know, or some things that, how do you even know? You don't know until it's happened to you. So don't try to, you know,
Or
sugarcoat
shouldn't we
it
be
with how
over it?
you felt.
Shouldn't you be over this by now? That one I've had a lot of people say. People have said that to them. And you know, is it ignorance? Is it that just people don't know?
No.
That's why I
But
say
they
it's
don't know what to say. And
better.
sometimes they say things that are just so inappropriate, and you know, and what's the thought? My thought was, how would you even know?
Right.
You know, if you were in the same shoes and you lost a child, then I can accept it from you. Just like all those mothers that are there trying to figure out how they're going to deal with the loss. You know, some of them end up drinking, losing their jobs, you know, and
Sitting on the couch,
right.
not avoiding life.
Right. So, not that it's wrong if they're sitting on their couch. It's just that they have to pick themselves up again, and they have to. They're not going to be 100%. You never will be 100%. And how you're going to feel about the loss of your child, we're all different. You know, we all love them. It's not that we don't. If I didn't do what I do now, like say, not go to the rallies, if I wasn't going to these events or trying to help people, I don't know how I'd be able to deal with it, because I know that I have to keep busy. Right? But I've gone past the feeling of trying to forget it or try, you know what I mean? Like a lot of times you run out and you go dancing or you'll be with other friends because you don't want to sit there and think. Because if you do think, you know, then, you know, the crying starts and the void is always there. You're not going to get right. It's hard to explain. But you're always looking for something to help you feel a little bit better about your situation that isn't good. You know, I like to listen to music, you know. I go out with my friends and I dance. It was great for a while there, you know, after being divorced. I mean, that's the first step is I got divorced and then I lose a son. So it's like a double whammy. And I didn't know how it was. And my son Patrick lived down in North Carolina, so I was like
even here.
by myself, you know, and having to deal, and having to learn how to deal with my losses without actually having anybody. And I didn't go to counseling. Maybe I should have gone to counseling, but I didn't. And you know, like I said, I did whatever I could to help me.
Everybody's journey is different, and you know, and you're kind of, I think it is healing in a way, and that's the one thing I focus on too, is some people have turned their grief into advocacy. Some people have jumped right in, and I've met many people, and you know, who have, and whether it's for a distraction or it's because they feel like they didn't do enough. I don't know why you think you didn't do enough, but some people, everybody has the right to feel what they feel, but for their own child, that maybe they can help another family or another child. I think it's a beautiful thing.
And I spoke to many mothers. I said, you know, I could tell you exactly, you know, what we need to do, but it's not you that I need to speak to. It's your child. So we can make all the plans in the world, but if they're not ready, the recovery is not going to happen. It has to begin with them wanting it. You know, and we can try. And I said, you know, and if you want me to talk to them, I'd love to, because you know why? They matter. And that's the first thing I tell them. You know, you really do matter. You're important. You're important to your family. You're important to me. And I don't even know you. As far as I'm concerned, you're worth, you matter, and I want to help you. We want to make them feel that, okay, feeling ashamed or feeling, you know, your own guilt. Why did I do that? You know? I mean,
which fuels And I believe that there's obviously the dependency piece, the physiological addiction, but there's all those underlying things, self-esteem, self-worth.
Right.
How do you feel about yourself? And even if you don't have to necessarily have trauma, you could have a beautiful life, you know, but somewhere along the lines, one person could have said something or something could have happened in your perception of something that's stuck. And then you get into an active addiction and you're using and you're hurting people around you and you're doing things and you're disappointing people, right?
And yourself.
And yourself. And then, so then you get clean, but then you have all that, I call them the icky feelings, you know, that may still be there. And that guilt of what you did or things you had to do or the people you hurt. And sometimes it's just, I think that sometimes if you don't put that in check and see it for what it is and process it, it's going to fuel the addiction. And I've seen it a million times. And I think that's a tough piece for people struggling with addiction is that guilt and forgiving themselves. You know, we've all made choices in life that probably, you know, some weren't the best choices that I've made in life. I've tried to learn from those choices, but you can't change the past, but we certainly can change our reaction to things and what we do, what our next move is, you know, so.
Absolutely. You know, and it's like, that's how I felt with Frank. I say to myself, he was 32 years old. He didn't even enjoy life. You know, at 21, he got a motorcycle, and I say, you don't want a motorcycle, please. Because I knew that he was not going to pay attention enough on the road without any metal around you. You know what I'm saying? And then within a month, he had a motorcycle accident, and his left leg was broken, both bones, and he had to have surgery on his wrist.
Wow.
So that's what started his addiction.
With the pain
Maybe
pills.
I knew right at the beginning, no, don't do that.
Right.
Because I had a premonition about what was going to happen. But, you know, you can't stop them. They're 21 years of age.
Right.
You know, you can always be there to help them. I don't believe in tough love, and I don't, maybe I'm wrong. You know, I tried not to enable, but they live with you. You know what I mean? I never threw them out of the house and said, you know, if you don't get help, then
Right.
you can't stay here. But he never really did anything to hurt anyone. I mean, even though it hurt me every day that he had such a
Watch him.
problem.
Right. Right.
But he was a good kid with a great heart. And it's like, I could never, ever turn my back on my children, either one of them. You know? Like my ex-husband said, I'll never be number one. I said, absolutely. You have children.
Right.
You know, and he wanted me to move to Fort Lauderdale. That's where he is. And it's like, he said, you never wanted to move to Florida. I said, no, absolutely not. My family's here.
Right. Right.
But I don't like it when it's too hot.
Right. Well,
You liked it, huh?
well, listen, you call me when it's minus 27 wind chill. You know that's right around the corner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Although today was a little shocker.
Listen,
53 to, I don't
it
know,
was
maybe
almost 70 degrees here.
Was
It was
it?
28 the other morning.
I was in work
and
at 6:30 this morning, and it said 51.
very warm when you walk
It said
outside.
51
you'll
at 6:30, so
see.
yeah, that is amazing. But we'll have you back here.
Listen, I love it here. I love everyone that I've met. Really, it's inspiring. It's inspiring. It's humbling. You know, and just there's something very magical.
I have to mention something that yesterday I was just totally amazed that they were using one of the small cafeterias over to the left, and they said, oh, they're doing classes on the opioid issue. And I said to myself, oh my God, that's wonderful. Because it seems like the only thing that I've heard are things that they were doing that were put into place by Governor Baker. It was mandatory.
Right. In the school system.
Right. And I'm very happy that it was above and beyond. Do you know what I mean? But we do have great high school teachers in the health department, and they already had something together for addiction that they did year after year after year. And then all of a sudden it's like it was stopped to do life skills, which life skills is a certificate. Have you heard of life skills? Okay. Well, life skills is like a 13-week course, and it teaches kids how to deal with the peers, and how you feel the same way as they do. Like, you know, they'll give you like 10 words that are negative and then 10 words that are positive, and you take 2 or 3 from each category, and when you sit down together, you see that you all pick the same ones.
Right.
So we all think and talk, you know, I mean, we don't all think or look or talk alike, but, you know, you have the same feelings sometimes.
Right.
You know, and who in your home can you talk to, and why is that, and do a homework project with that. But they never really touch base on addiction.
Which is mind-blowing, isn't it?
Right.
In today's
But
day
they're
and
just
age.
trying to teach kids how that everybody most feels the same way. Because when I did Dale Carnegie classes, it's like everybody likes to hear their name.
Right.
Everybody likes to hear good things about themselves. And that if you want to correct something, you have to talk about the good things before you can talk about what needs to be changed. You know, and then in the end, you know, out of 95% good, you always hear about that 5% negative. Let's turn this around. There's a lot of good, positive things out there. Let's be objective to, you know, that recovery is possible, and that there's 23 million people that are in recovery.
Right.
You know?
Living the dream, baby.
That's
That's
right.
what I
This
say.
is what we
Living
have
the
to talk
dream.
about. Not, oh, he's nothing but a junkie, and let's,
Right.
you know, just let him go. That kills me when people talk like that. I sat at a table with 13 women. We all had different stories, but in the end, it was all ended up the same. You know, it's like our stories were so similar. You know, the pain, the suffering.
Feelings, right. The
Losing your-
feelings.
Yes, the feelings about your children. You know, what was happening, what can we do?
Right.
And in the end, it's nothing you can do.
Right.
It's up to them.
One thing that I know how I changed professionally, I mean, I was tough as a clinician, but I loved, and I think they felt that. But I was always no sugarcoating anything. With families, I saw the way I handled it differently, and I think more recently it became this. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I can tell you what's suggested. I can, you know, put you in touch with resources, but you have to do what you're going to be able to live with. Because
Absolutely.
it is life or death. It's not even like someone, you know, you get a bag of dope. There's a good possibility there's fentanyl in it, or carfentanil, or acrylfentanyl. You're done. Like, it's going to kill 20 of us. So, I you know, I say, if you're a parent, you know, what are you going to be able to live with? If you can live with making that decision to tell them, I'm not going to have you be in my home, or I'm not going to support this or that, then that's what you need to do. But you need to know if they're using opiates. I can't even say just opiates. I know a woman who lost her son with a fake Xanax pill.
There's a lot of those pills.
Right,
A lot of those.
right. I mean, you just have to be willing to, what is it that you're going to be able to live with? Because the reality is, your child could lose their life.
Well, a lot of times you feel now they realize that there's a lot of dual diagnosis, and you have to take care of the mental health issues before you can really take care of the addiction. You know, and that there's a lot of facilities that are starting to have dual.
Thank God.
treatment.
And that they're real, not just dual diagnosed capable. Those are those like loophole things. No, you're not. I was never a psychiatrist. How was I able to really diagnose somebody with bipolar, especially when they're coming off of drugs?
You know
A
what
lot
really
of those
cracks me up?
behaviors mimic that. You know, someone's got to be clean, right? We need some sort of baseline.
My son was told that he had bipolar, so that when the last time that he went in for treatment, I said, "You're not bipolar."
Right.
It's like, okay, we treat people with medication all the time instead of, you know, like, what's your pain level, 1 to 10? When did that start?
Right.
Back in 2004 when opioids came around? I have no idea, but all I know is that, you know, I feel uncomfortable. I like my situation, so what am I going to do? I'm going to alter the way I feel by taking a drug, or I'm going to go find marijuana, or I'm going to drink.
Right.
It's like people are not comfortable in their skin, so what are they doing? They're using drugs to make themselves feel better, and then at that point, they're hooked.
Right.
And
Right.
we have
in some
all these
instances-
kids that are in high school years and don't even realize, you know, that these pills that they're taking, what start to take, is going to be a problem for the rest of their lives.
Which is why it's such a beautiful thing that that school, your school, is doing what they're doing. And I hope they continue to be proactive. And I hope all schools are. I say bring it down. Bring it down to middle school, grade school, at their level. You know, maybe we don't have to go into as many details as we would to someone who's in 9th grade or 10th grade, but certainly they can understand choices, making good choices, peer pressure, people to tell, what to look for. I mean, some of these kids, though, sadly, you know, are dealing with addiction within their own home. Or the other piece to this epidemic that we are in is we have all these children that don't have parents because they've died of an overdose. And we know some of them. We know some of the parents that are grandparents. Not only did they lose their child, but now they're raising this beautiful grandchild. You know, and this is not what they signed up for. Never in a million years did they think that at 55, at 62, you're raising a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old.
Do you realize we just ran out of time?
Did we?
We've actually been on for 1 hour.
Wow. We
See
could
that?
talk for another 2 hours, Joanne.
Oh,
See
I know that
That's
we could.
me.
You know what? And next time you're here, wherever you're going to be,
I'm
whether
coming
it's come
back.
back from California, or I want you to come and stay here, because I think that you could do a lot for people, even though you don't want to be in that field anymore. But I think that we need to have another group. We need to form another group. And when you come back, I'd like you to try to come with me and see a group called Mercy Street.
Okay.
And they have a clinician,
Yeah,
and
I
they
would
have a
love to.
pastor, and they sit there in a circle with everybody from all different, the parents, the siblings, people in
Love it.
recovery. Everybody tells their story. Like once a week, there's someone that tells their story. So now the person that's in recovery knows how this parent feels after losing a child.
How powerful is that?
I think it's really powerful, and I think that's what we need. Or find out what codependency is, you know, and everybody sit down. It's a person that's in their 60s and a kid that's it's 18, 19 years old.
Right.
We're all in the same room,
Right.
and
I
maybe
love
we
it.
can help.
I believe that works. I definitely want to come to one of those when I come back.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'll make sure I wear my hat and my winter coat and my gloves and my and my boots. Thank you,
Okay.
Joanne.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate it. I know I was going to say,
We always
bring
love.
it in.
We always
Thank you
love to
so
hug
much.
each other.
I know. I'm a hugger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we have to get Stuart in here to shut this off.
Oh, we'll keep going.
But we're still on YouTube.
Are we?
Yeah.
What else can we talk about? Where's Stuart? Should we go get him?
Yeah, I think I'll go get Stuart. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you.
Stuart.
Love Stuart.